Six Nations 2023, folks. England against France. Very important game for both these sides because they've both got a loss. And if they want to stay in the hunt, they basically both need to win. But both sides can't win. Only one can win. So, big game, as it always is between England and France. We're going to go through the recent history between the sides, the lineups, some stats, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. England's lineup, there's only one major talking point, isn't it? It's going to be the headline everywhere, and that is the number 10 jersey. But we'll start with the front row. It's Genge, George, and Sinckler, so steady as she goes. But Genge's captain. Why is Genge captain? Because Farrell's on the bench. So, congratulations, Ellis Genge. I think it's his first time captaining England, so he's obviously done it at club level before, but it's a big step up to be doing it for your country. So, well done. I mean, he's been having a cracking Six Nations, isn't he? Has Ellis Genge. So, very, very pleased for him because he's just been an absolute workhorse. Itoje and Chessum are still the same preferred locking duo, and every game I see those guys play together, I think they look a little bit better. So, yeah, the absence of Johnny Hill, I was initially a little bit sceptical, but nah, man, Chessum's doing phenomenally well alongside Maro, and Maro looked, I thought, back to his kind of best as well in that last game that they played a couple of weeks ago. Ludlam, Willis, and Dombrandt has a lot of work rate in that back row, which is also pretty pleasing. Ludlam's getting through a ton of tackles. Willis is a real threat, especially at the breakdown, and then Dombrandt, I reckon just quietly, he's been doing pretty good, man. I know he's been, a couple of weeks ago I saw him getting a bit of stick, but we'll get to some of his stats in a wee bit. Poortvliet and Marcus Smith, that's the 9-10 combo. So Marcus Smith is at 10 and there's no Farrell at 12. That's obviously the main talking point. Farrell's on the bench. So they asked the coach, what's his name, Poortvliet. They asked Poortvliet about, what's the deal? And he basically just said, this is the side that I think is best to beat the French. He didn't really elaborate when they asked him, like, what is it that Smith's going to do that Farrell isn't going to do. But, yeah, I mean, I think what we would like to see, especially seeing as Smith played really well for Quins the other week, is that if they are going to kick as much little dinking kicks through, we need to see a little bit more accuracy from England in that regard. And I think there's very few people better at it than Marcus Smith. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing a bit of that from his game. Ollie Lawrence and Henry Slade, that's the same midfield combo. Lawrence has certainly been the star of that show with his big ball carrying. Watson and Malins continue on the wings, and Freddie Steward still there at fullback. Obviously really important to the way England play, chasing those high balls and getting a lot of carries from the back. Laws is injured, so they've brought in Dave Ribbans on the bench. Walker, Vunipola and Cole are the front row replacements. Geez, please give Walker more than like a minute. Please. Can we give him 10 minutes? Ben Curry, Alex Mitchell, Owen Farrell, and Henry Arundell are there as well. So apparently Farrell's going to captain when he comes off the bench. So maybe we're expecting to see him a little bit earlier than we may expect. Because, I mean, what we've seen from Steve Poortvliet thus far is he's not afraid of giving guys like 1 minute at the end. There's been multiple guys who come on for virtually no game time. So, yeah, I would imagine Farrell's going to come on a bit earlier than that. I also hope Alex Mitchell gets a few more minutes because I think he's added a nice little bit of spark against some tired legs from the opposition. So there you go, man. See how Marcus Smith goes with no Farrell outside him. Interesting. For the French, they are forced to make a couple of changes. One of those being in the front row. So they've got Bai, Marchand, and Eldeguerry there. So Eldeguerry's their third tight head starter of the Six Nations because obviously Antonio is suspended and Hawaii is suspended. So yeah, they're getting some testing. Although he's had I think not quite 10 games for France since Galtier took over, but he's no stranger to international rugby. And then they asked him why is he starting ahead of Falatea. Well, basically he said it's the Toulouse connection from what Google Translate tells me of the press conference. So yeah, he should be able to fit in well with his club teammates at international level as well. So good luck to him. Flamand and Willems are the same locking duo, which is, as I said multiple times, really pleasing. I think they complement each other well, with one with a huge work rate and one with a huge body. So, yeah, they both work really well. Cross comes in the number 6 jersey because Jelange is out long-term, having an ACL injury, right? So he's out for a good 6 months. So, of course, is going to have to impress in that absence. Olivon and Aldric are there. Remember, Aldric didn't get that many minutes in the last game because of the red card they had. So he was the kind of guy sacrificed to bring on a prop. Dupont and Ntamack, same 9-10. There's no Jalibert for this one. He's injured. And the way they translated the press conference, it made it sound like they would have given Jalibert more time against England, but I'm not sure if that's just the translate being incorrect, because they seem to be determined to give Ntamack every start possible. I would have liked to have seen Jalibert, but now that he's injured, that's certainly not going to happen. Danty and Fickou, 12 and 13. So Danty's back on the side, and they've been talking him up big time, apparently, in the press conference, from what the translate tells me. So they reckon he's in hot form. So yeah, he's a big unit of a man. Him up against Ollie Lawrence is going to be worth the price of admission either way. But I mean, Fickou has also been in phenomenal form. So look forward to either of those guys getting their hands on the pill. Penaud and Dumortier are the same wings, and then Thomas Ramos is still there at fullback. Subs-wise, Malvaka is back in the 23, which is good news. Wardy and Filete are the same prop replacements. Telfa Fanua and Makalu are still there, but 3 back replacements this time instead of the 6-2 split. So Luku is in. I don't know why they pick a replacement 9, because they haven't used one yet, I don't think. I think they've had Kuyu and Ligarek, and they haven't used a single minute of any of them. But it's Luku's turn this time. Moefana drops to the bench, and Jaminer is there as well. They've basically said, I think, Ramos and even Jaminer can cover 10 if anything happens to Ntamack. I know Ramos has played a bit of 10 for Toulouse, so yeah, it's an interesting possibility. Yeah, what else? Oh, stats. I promised some stats. Individual stats first. England, Genge, he's the top carrier for England. He loves to carry, and they love to see him carry. But Dombrandt is your top forward for run meters, so he is actually getting some go forward ball. Steward is the top England back for carries. He's a really key part of everything England does, obviously chasing those high balls as well, and he's the top England guy for run meters. So if you're going to shut somebody down from a French point of view, you probably want it to be Steward, to be honest. For the French, man, there's some dangerous backs. Like, Penaud is the 3rd guy in the Six Nations for defenders beaten. Dumortier, the other winger, is 4th, and then Fickou is 5th. I think it's Capuozzo and Dumortier who are the 1 and 2, but 3, 4, and 5 are all French players. Flamand is the top tackler in the Six Nations, and Marchand is not far behind him in 3rd. So there's some huge work rate in this French side, but as a team, the French, it's interesting, like they've been scoring more points in the first quarter than all the other quarters combined. So they're a really dangerous team at the start of the game, but haven't been able to continue things on as much. There's been a little bit of talk about the size of the French pack and how the game being sped up a little bit with the new laws and the way the refs are supposed to get things moving maybe doesn't help the way the French are playing, and maybe that's reflected in the scoring numbers. Like England, they like to kick the ball a fair bit. They don't kick it as much in terms of pure number of kicks, because England play with more possession than France. France have been kind of a low possession team, but for the amount of ball they get, they kick it a fair bit. It's been part of their game plan of Gaultier for a long time. They've been playing with really low possession, but also really low territory, which is maybe a little bit more uncharacteristic, but still really dangerous. Like 19 clean breaks, I think, is first even. So France don't play with that much ball. They don't play with that much territory, but geez, they're dangerous when they do decide to attack you. For England, their attacking numbers are kind of flat in comparison. Like, they outdo Wales, but that's not saying much this year. So, like, in terms of like the pure, like, defenders beating clean breaks, the real electric X-Factor stuff, England's not really been setting the world alight, but they have been kicking the ball a lot, which gets criticised. Sometimes when it's a bit off the ball, it doesn't look that flash. But I think with Smith coming in, maybe that's going to be a little bit improved. But yeah, 105 kicks from hand from England thus far in the Six Nations. The next most from any team is 92. So they've been putting a fair bit of boot to ball. And when you've got a weapon like Steward in the backfield, it kind of makes sense. And I mean, you've got Watson to chase balls as well. Much better defence, though, in their last game against Wales, because their defensive numbers in their first 2 games, Scotland and Italy, were not flash for England. But you have to ask yourself, was that the English defence, or was that just Wales? Because Wales' attack's been pretty poor. So for England, they'll need those attacking numbers to stay good. But like I mentioned, the French attack is really a bit of a handful. Recent results, it's 3-2 to England from the last 5. The Twickenham games go to England. The Stade de France games go to France. That's pretty much the split. England do well at Twickenham against France. France don't go to England and get a win very often. I think it was like 2007 was like the last time. So average score between the teams across the last 5 is 24-19. So England edged that. The most recent one being 25-13 over France last year with that Grand Slam year from the French. So there have been some tight ones though. Like the last time they played Twickenham, it was 23-20. The time before that was that Autumn Nations Cup final that went to extra time. It was won by 3 points. So there's the 2019 44-8, which really blows out the average scoreline. It tends to be pretty close games between these sides, even when they are at Twickenham. Predictions-wise, the bookies are saying France, but only by 1. But the Rugby Forecast algorithm, interestingly, has a split, and they're saying England by 5. So it's pretty rare that we see a split between those two, but for this case, there is a wee bit of one. It is on at Twickenham. Ben O'Keefe, the New Zealander, is the ref. It's a 4:45 local kickoff, which is 5:45 in the morning for those of us in New Zealand. So get your cups of coffee ready, Kiwis. It's on at Twickenham, like I mentioned. And broadcasters ITV and Virgin Media One. So that's UK and Ireland, respectively. Both free to air, helpfully. So if you are outside those free to air territories, VPN like this, watch games for free. So if you need a VPN, you don't have one, use Express down in the description. I've been using it for a very long time. They do 30-day money-back guarantee as well, in case it doesn't work for you. So it works for me. There you go. You guys let us know your thoughts. Who do you reckon is going to win it? Do you think the English can maintain that kind of home winning run at Twickenham, or do you think the French are fired up from that loss against the Irish, will be looking to kind of come out and keep their title hopes alive? But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.